Okay, welcome to Bitrix Live. I'm Damien Edwards, Commercial Manager of Interface. We're Bitrix24 partners based in the UK, and we have offices in New York and Dubai. With me I've got Andy Naylor, our support manager.
Hi guys, so this session is going to be an hour long, and you can ask us any questions throughout by just putting them in the box on YouTube, or you can tweet us at Interface, or you can send us an email to live@interface.com, and we can answer them today, or we're here every Thursday at 10 a.m. Eastern. So if you want to ask, if you've got questions in the week, please just drop us an email, and we can answer them on the next session. So I think Damien's had a couple that have come in.
Okay, so how can I update records showing a mailer list? So I have fields created and a date mailed. I see where I can add an activity. How can I update all fields at once? So I think they've created a couple of fields, and you need to be able to do bulk update these fields, and it looks like there's more than one field that you need to do. So I think the best way to do this is to do it with a business process. So I don't know if it's a one-time thing where you need to update them, or whether you regularly need to update these fields. I don't know whether it's dependent on something else, but can we create a business process that does this?
Yeah, so you'd have to, if we go into the CRM, what element was it in? Was it in
Not sure.
So I mean, we can do it in any of the elements in here. So if we go into, say, for example, into settings, and then if we go into automation here, and if we click on business processes, let's say, for example, if it's going to be a mailing list, it most likely will be contacts. So if we go into a contact and add a template for a business process, and let's say and then what we can do is when added or when changed. So this is basically updating the field. This process will update the fields if a new contact gets added, or you can have it when a new contact gets updated or edited, or we can actually manually run the process. So again, and I'm not 100% sure which preference, as Damien mentioned, you would prefer. So we'll just have it on both at the moment. But then what the business process tool has is it has this modify element section here. So what we can do is select the field that you want to be updated. So let's say, for example, you mentioned it's a mailing address. So say, for example, if you wanted the address, you could put what you want in here, and then we could add a new field. Oh, sorry. And then what you'd have to do, you'd actually have to add multiple modify elements. I think that would work for updating multiple fields, but that would be with static. You'd have to have that with static information in this. The alternative is that if you wanted parameters that you filled in a form, and then that would then update them. I think that's correct.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not too sure on the objectives really. The question's not too clear to me, but yeah, it doesn't really say whether they're based on anything. So when we create this process, the process we created will run when something's added or changed. So if you wanted to run this process across all records in your system, or a selection of records in the system, you would have to make a modification to that record. So you could just update a common field in there. So if you wanted to trigger this process, let's say, is it run on contacts? Let's go into contacts. You would create your filter of the contacts you want to update. You would select here, we would select all, and then this would select all fields, and then you just need to trigger an action on it really. I think this action make public, unless you're using that specifically, you could just update all records by making all records public, and that would trigger the process. Okay, we have another question about business processes. I'm trying to create a business process for the below scenario. If deal end date has passed the previously mentioned end date, then a notification should go to a responsible person. E.g., if a sales rep has set end date to 11th of July and deal is not closed on 11th of July, then a notification should go to responsible person. So can we do this with a process with a while loop or something? So we're looking for we're looking for a sales rep has set end date. So end date, I think, is it in a deal, I guess. Oh yes, so deal end date. So end date's a standard field within a deal. So they basically just want a process to send a notification to somebody, a supervisor, I guess, if the deal's not closed by that date, that specified date. So I guess that will be quite a common requirement.
Yeah, I think the only restriction with this is that you would need to find out today's date in the business process. So then you can see when the end date is going to be passing. So you would have a business process. I'll show you on the screen here. So if we go to the automations, and then let's say we'll call this check end date. And then what we're going to do is when a new deal has been added, we're going to add a variable here. So we'll call this today's date, and we'll see. Ooh. Class this to the date field here. Press OK. So we've got a variable for today's date, and we're going to trigger this when a new deal has been added. And then, as Damien mentioned, what we need to do then is create a while loop that would check that particular field. So actually, what we need to do first is, and then this is where the restriction slightly comes in, because what we're going to need to do is we're going to need to get today's date, and the only way to do that on Bitrix would be to have some PHP code in here that we could say get today's date, and then we would have to write some code in here. I'm not going to write the code in here, so we would store get today's date with a PHP, which is relatively easy. If you Google it, you can get the actual line of code, and then we would set it as a variable. So we're basically giving the variable that we've just created, the date of today's date. So what that will then do is, in the while loop, we can go to a variable value, click on today's date, and if it's equal to the variable that we store, oh no, sorry, you actually want it in the end date, wasn't it? It's the you want the end date. So if we've got a deal, you say it's a standard field, I think.
And I think end date's a standard field, or within event date, close date, it's probably called close date in there.
Yeah, so what you could do is have a while loop that said if the close date is less than today's date, then we'll do it less than. So then it would keep looping. So what we would have to add, we would make sure that we would have to add a pause execution. So we would pause that and make sure that that's going to be checking every day. And then what we can do is it's going to keep running a check, and then if was it to send a notification after it's passed,
yeah.
So then you would get a user notification after it's passed. Otherwise, it's just going to check, and when that's not true, then it will carry on straight through the process on there.
Okay, so you said that I've configured this. However, notification pops up when my field is when any field is changed inside the deal. What should I do? So what I think you've done, if you're getting a notification whenever any field is changed, you've not got this condition. It's not looking to meet this condition which we've set up. So essentially, what you've probably got is that. So if we go into the template parameters, you've probably got this ticked, which means the process will trigger whenever anything is changed in the system. We save that and come out, and then there's no condition in here, so it will always send out this notification when any record, when any new record is created, or when anything's changed on the system. So you just need to add in, as we put in there before, as Andy's put in there before, something to check. But as Andy said, you would need to write a little bit of code in there. So you need this PHP action block. Not available on the cloud. So if you have self-hosted, that would be possible to do it. I think if you have a self-hosted account, get in touch with us and we can provide that code for you to be able to create that process. But yeah, that's the simple way of doing it. Probably not possible on the cloud. I don't know if there's another way of doing it. I mean, you can create a filtered list of deal end dates, and you could list them. So if we go into our deals, should be able to show. Create. I can't find the date, but let's put event date in. Can't find end date. Let's put event date in. So we can. Okay, no data in there, but we can create. You can show your end date field if it exists. If it exists in here. If it exists as a.
I'm not sure if it's the closed field at the bottom left.
Closed. That's probably. Yeah, I think that's probably. Yeah. So if the date field exists, if it doesn't exist, you can create your own end date or close date field, and then in a list view display that. And because we've got this little arrow here, it shows us that we can filter this list view by this field. So you'd be able to filter by latest end date. I mean, in fact, you could use it. In fact, it'd be easier to use a filter in here, wouldn't it? So we could find our date field, end date. There it is, and we could have current day. So we could save this filter as well. End date today, save, and we have then got a filtered view of deals. So we've got that saved. We can run that. So you need to run that filter every day or access this page every day, and then as and when you had a deal which matched current day, and then a deal with an end date that matches the current day, you'd be able to see it in this list view. So it depends how much automation you want to do, whether you've got salespeople that can run this in each day.
Yeah, I think following on from that, I had a question come in the week, and they were just talking about how they can basically import their lead data and filter it in, because they have different lists of leads for different clients of theirs. So there's a couple of points I just wanted to point out. That they were saying, how can we segment that data and see all that data in there? Now, Damien's just showed you one of the ways. So if we were to go into leads here, then if we create the filter, so what they were saying is they have different types of leads. So you would basically create the field for lead type and then have a drop-down option for that particular list. So let's say, for example, source. We can split all our leads up into different lists based on. So if we, like Damien said, click on the save filter for all leads that are in an email, and that was the first question. And the second question was then to how can they email out to those specific lists of leads. Now, in the CRM marketing package, what you can actually do is create a segment list. So, for example, what we could do is we could say lead source equals email. So it may be that you've gone to an exhibition and you've collected a lot of new data from there, and you've tagged those leads in your system as exhibition. Then what you can actually do is you can create the filter and do exactly the same filtering tool as what we've looked at just a moment ago, but within the CRM marketing. So in this case, we'll say we're going to create them for an email. Click on search, and then you can see here that it will bring six emails, 6 leads that have emails associated to them based on that. And then click on save, and then you can use that segment within a particular campaign. So you can then create a campaign, and at the top here we can then choose that. So click on an email, and you can see here select recipient list, click off that, click on segments, and then I can see in my segments lead source equal email, and that will give us the number of recipients that it's going to take to. So it's really easy to filter your contacts, your leads, your companies based on whatever it is that you want to be basing it on. In this case it's a source, but it's definitely easy to segment your data inside Bitrix.
Okay, so if you've got questions, type them into the YouTube, the chat box on YouTube, or email them to live@intreface.com, INTREFACE, and see we've got a few people on, but send us some questions. Have a question here that came in earlier in the week. We are using Skype for Business as our standard telephony solution. Is it possible to integrate that with Bitrix and the CRM? Okay, so you can, there's a couple of different things here really, I guess. Integrating Skype for Business as a telephony solution, I don't know the answer to that. So let's just click into telephony. So we can connection. We can integrate with standard phone systems, and we have pre-built integration with these systems here. We can also integrate with free PBX. We can integrate with 3CX, I think it is, yeah, and another one we just started working with. So there's a few, in terms of telephony, there's a few different options you've got. I mean, you can use the built-in telephone system in Bitrix, plug in a USB phone into your machines and take calls in that way. You can use the soft phone on the mobile app to receive and make calls. The second option then is to use the SIP connector feature of Bitrix. So you can, for $50 a month, you can connect to your existing telephone system using the pre-built integration. There is a way that you can get 60 minutes free to test that, and you should test whether you're happy with that solution for you, test whether you're happy with the call quality and things. Third option is to use one of these standard apps that we have. As I say, 3CX I think, and free PBX are preferred. They're not actually on here, but those are our preferred ones that we have integration, pre-built integration. So that's tested and that works well, and it's relatively inexpensive, probably about $1,000 essentially from our side to set up for you, one-off cost, and then you have available to you all the functionality of that phone system, but it's going to integrate inside Bitrix and integrate with your CRM, so calls will pop up on your inside Bitrix. Calls will get recorded into the CRM contact if you want them to do that. So that's fairly a good way of doing it if you've got one of those, using one of those phone systems that we've mentioned. If you're not using another system, you can't change the system, then we can do a custom integration with the API. That can be expensive, so we normally quote in the region of about $20,000, so that's That's it's an option for some businesses, but depending on the size of your organisation, I guess it can be ruled out. But yeah, there's those kind of 4 different ways, 4 different routes, and we're doing a webinar soon on telephony, which will show you how how we can integrate with a phone system and how that's set up and what that does. But Skype for Business, I think I might be wrong, but I think that's not a telephone. It's not a telephone. It's not a traditional telephone provider, so you can't integrate telephony in this way with Skype for Business. You can integrate through open channels. So let's go into open channels, and we have here we go, Skype. So you can. I don't think we've done this. I don't think we've actually tested this, but you can. There is some pre-built integration with Skype, and this will allow you to. This will allow you to configure it using these settings in here. Here we go. So you can put your Microsoft settings, Skype settings in here. You'll need to create these bot IDs and app IDs inside your Skype account, I guess. So yeah, I mean, it should be fairly straightforward to have a go at setting this up yourself. I think it should work fairly easily. Hopefully, if you wanted some support, we could give you some support on it. But I think that's going to allow you to integrate with the messenger tool in Bitrix. So an incoming message on that Skype account or incoming call will appear in the message on the right hand side, so you'll get a pop-up here where you'll be able to reply if it's a chat message, reply to them, or indeed if it's a video call, you'll get the same thing, a pop-up here, and you'll see a call come in, or you'll be able to make outgoing calls. So it's slightly different. It's an integration with the open channels rather than integration with telephony, which means that it's not going to record those calls, save them to the contact in the CRM. So it's I'm not sure if that's the right sort of solution for you.
Just got a question come through on YouTube just with regards to the open channels functionality. It says, how is this different than a help desk, or can it be used in this way? So I mean, the open channels has a few different widgets in here. If you're going to be using it's not a help desk as such as the open channels. So I mean, you could have a live chat and use that for your support on your website. So you could display that on maybe your support section of your website, and people can submit their support questions via the live chat. But a help desk is available on the on-premise version of Bitrix. And if I just show you on ours for an example, if I click into our extranet, let me just change the background on here to make it a little bit clearer. So if I just go to, on the left hand side, we've got a support, and you can see this is the help desk that Bitrix comes with for the on-premise version. And we can create and submit a ticket on here, and then you can view all your open support tickets. And then your support agents who receive this will then receive a support ticket in, again, this is on a self-hosted, in the help desk section here, we've got trouble tickets. So they will receive all the tickets that come in through your customers submitting the tickets, and then they can create filters, and certain tickets can go to certain support agents and so on and so forth. So the open channels is a very different mechanism to the help desk. The help desk is a ticketing system on Bitrix. Yeah,
absolutely. So we've got a follow-up to our question just now. Skype for Business is the only telephone provider we have, so it must be a telephone system. So if it is indeed a telephone system, PBX virtual PBX system, then we can integrate it with Bitrix telephony, to allow you to record calls inside the CRM, and route calls as well to the people that are responsible for contacts in the CRM. It will be, as it's not standard integration, it'll be in that range of $20,000 essentially. There's quite a bit of work involved in doing it, so it can be done, but there will be, it's not standard integration. So we can do it. If you want to get in touch, we can arrange it for you. Got a question here. When is Sites available on self-hosted version? So I think Sites is available. It is available now. So we've got a link here. It's in beta. So this is a self-hosted version. So it's been on the cloud for some time, and now available on self-hosted. So it's available now.
Yeah, if you don't see it, if you've got a self-hosted version and you don't see it, then you just need to go into your control panel, and if you go to Marketplace and then Platform Update, you will need to apply the updates that are available if you haven't already. That won't automatically add the Sites module onto your system. You will need to go to your settings and then your modules on here, and actually to activate it you need to go to landings. So it's actually called landings in the modules of Bitrix. So you can see create landing pages using the landing page designer, and there would be a green button here. You just click on that to install, and then you would need to just jump to the front, click on refresh cache, and it will appear. So that's how you get Sites. And I had another question come in just about Sites earlier on this week, and the question was, can we create multiple sites? Which is, yes, you can create as many sites as you like, but have their own domain name, and that is possible. So you can create a site and put it on. You can point your domain name that you want the site on to the site that you create on Bitrix. So for those of you that haven't seen it, if I just jump to our other system here, then you can see that you can create quite a, once it loads up, you can see on here we created just a demonstration site on our system, and you can see that it's very attractive. It's easy to create and it's easy to modify. We are going to be having a webinar coming up just solely about the site, so we can show you how to build and how to set these up. But they are a great tool that's very new to Bitrix.
Yeah. So we've got a question about the desktop app. What's the real use of the desktop client? Why would anyone use it? I don't see how it has any advance on the web client. So it's a good question. Don't know if we've got it downloaded or whether it's worth downloading it onto this machine. Let's go to let's go to the Bitrix24 and see if we can download the app. So we want mobile or desktop app for Windows. So there is some additional functionality some additional reasons why you might want to use the desktop app, other than just the fact that you might prefer to use it for kind of chat and things and telephony. You might prefer to use a desktop client than inside a browser. But the main reason why you would use it is number one, you can share screens in chat. So you can't share a screen inside a chat if you're just operating inside the browser, but you need to have that desktop client running. And then number two, I think the main reason why people use it is that you can sync documents. So it will sync those documents you have in your My Drive space to copy them to a folder on your local machine. That's the desktop client that's running that. So you can't do that without having the desktop client open. So yeah, documents would be the main one, unless you've, I think if you open the chat window, I think, do we need to reboot? Should we?
Yeah.
Okay. So if you open a chat, let's open a chat window with this person. I can So I don't have the share screen option here because this is in the browser. So in the desktop client, you'll see that there is an additional icon here which allows me just to share my screen with another user. And then if you go into my drive, so we're in my drive here, everything that appears in your drive will sync. So just go through that. If I go into it, so these are work group folders. You can see these ones here where they're shared, the share icon. They're work group folders. They're available in my own drive space here. So anything that appears in my drive space, if I'm running the desktop app, will get copied to a local folder, which means that I can access those files offline. It also means that I can actually, if you can find a folder with something in it, it also means I can actually open folders directly from. So I could open a PDF viewer like this. But if I wanted to open a Word document, I can't do that from inside the application. But if I'm running the desktop app, it will find. I can click within the application. Yeah, click within it. So I can choose to either use a local program to open this file, or I can choose to use a cloud version like Google Docs or Microsoft 365 or something. That allows me then to find a file inside Bitrix itself and click and open that file using that external application. But you need to be running the desktop app to do that, because when I click on this link, it actually finds the local copy of that file and opens that local copy. So it's quite quick. It saves me having to download this file and then open it as I need to do with the local application. So Bitrix doesn't have a version of Word built in. You need to use another tool to do that. So depending on the file type, of course, these are Word documents. If you've got other file types, whatever file type you've got to have a program that will open those file types. So none of those exist inside Bitrix, so you use an external one. So the desktop app is certainly good for syncing documents so that you can access them offline, but also then allow you to open documents quickly from the application. If I change that, so I click on that, if I open that document, if I make a change to that, it will save it to my local folder, which will then sync it back to Bitrix itself, so that the next person that comes in and opens this document will get the latest version of it. So there is a syncing process goes on. You can see inside the desktop app documents syncing. You can see whether all documents are synced and up to date, or whether there's some still syncing. It will always sync automatically anything that's changed, or indeed anything that's added as well, I think. So another good use of the desktop app would be if you want to import a very large number of documents into Bitrix. If you're running the desktop app, that creates a folder on your local machine. If you want to drag in your very large number of documents into that folder, then they will sync into Bitrix over time. So that's one thing we do sometimes when we're setting people up, when they're moving a lot of documents into Bitrix desktop app. So
yeah, I think you just have to think of it, the desktop application, in terms of the document side of things, as a middleman. It's basically working between your local machine and Bitrix, and it's syncing via the app itself. So it's a network drive essentially on your machine.
Yeah. Okay.
So I had a question just with regards to the ability to customize PDFs in Bitrix. So Bitrix have released in the CRM, which is relatively quick to show you. If we go into the quote side of things and click into a particular quote, then Bitrix now have, I do believe, if it's in here, may not be on here, but let me just check into our demonstration site. And here, and click it into a quotes. Then you can see here there's a document tab, and now what we can do is we can add a new template, and it allows you then to create the template that you want for your company branding, which is a really useful feature. We used to use an application called Doc Designer, so for those of you who've been using Bitrix for quite a while, you might be aware of that one. Now what we can do is add a new template for the quote. But what also this allows is you can actually, like we didn't have purchase orders before, you can actually create a document for a purchase order or a packing slip in this case.
So you can upload templates, or we can edit these, I guess, can't we?
Mm-hmm.
Alright, so we need to upload a Word document as a template. Okay, it's quite a new tool. I think you need to have a play around with.
Yeah, I just think that having the ability to be able to brand the PDFs quite easily now is it's a lot better, and you can do that on, like say, on quotes, on invoices, and you can create purchase orders now. You can use the quotes module for a purchase order if you wanted to. It's really useful.
Yeah, so you can use this one module, quotes module, to generate different items. Yeah, so just to repeat what Andy said. Yeah. So it will draw in the data, and you can pick out bits of data that you want for a packing list or for a quote or something like that. Okay. We set a series of tasks each month. Is there a way this can be done automatically? So let's go into tasks, and in fact we can create tasks from a template. So create tasks using templates. We've got some task templates here. If we click into all templates, then you can edit these and you can add a new one. So adding a new template, you can give it a your description. You can assign it to people. You can create. You can put in deadlines. All the fields you can populate. In the fields you need to populate. You can post it to a particular work group, project group. And create it as a repeat task here, repeating however you want it to repeat, every day, every week, every other week, that sort of thing. So it says that you create a series of tasks. So I wonder whether you create a task which repeats in a series in every week, or whether you create a number of tasks. So if it's just one task or a couple of tasks, then create templates and then or repeat templates. This will do it for you. If you want to create a large number of tasks, you might be better to use a business process. If you want to create a large number of tasks at the same time from a template, so you could do that from. Let's do it from the CRM. So you could do it from a contact in the CRM. So if we go into a contact, let's say exactly what you're doing, but if I go into this, let's go into let's go back into this other site, go to this contact. So if we open up a contact in the CRM, let's say you needed to create a series of tasks that relate to a particular customer. We have a series of business processes which are available on contacts. We can create a business process called task list or project or something like that, and you can run that. So you could either run that process manually by selecting the contact and running it from this screen, or it could be scheduled to run the month or something like that. If we go into settings within the CRM and into automation again and business process, so you need to be an administrator to access this area. Go into contact and add template. So just call it tasks. Again, so this could be triggered when we add a new contact or when a contact is changed. I think you probably just want to run it manually. So if we deselect those, then simply really in here you just want to create a task, and so of course we can add in a series of tasks like this. It might be, I can populate these tasks. I can give them name, assign them to, I need to assign them to, give them start and end dates and that sort of thing. It might actually be that actually you want to. Let's just create. It might actually be that you want to have when you run this process, you might need to input some data into there. So we would use a variable parameter field. So let's just do a date field. So it might be, finish date or something. Finish date. Select from the list date down here and save. We could add a series of different fields in that we're going to populate when we run this process, but let's just put a date field in. Finish date. If we go into the task itself, end date here, we can populate that with the field we've just created, finish date. Let's give this a name. Let's assign it to myself. So we give the task a name, assign it to myself. Don't think we need to fill any other fields out in here unless you wanted to, and save that. So essentially all this process is going to do is, when we run it manually, it's going to create this task, but it's going to ask us for a date, and the date's going to be populated into the task. So if we go to the bottom and apply this, and if we go to our CRM, open up in another tab, into our contacts again, pick any contact that we need to run this on. As we looked at before, business processes sit in this little icon on the right hand side. Here's the process we've created, tasks, and it's given us a form here, so we can create the end date, end of next week. Again, as we said, if you wanted to collect additional information from the user at this point, you could have a more detailed form. If we submit that, you can see that the task is completed. What we should have done is added in a notification. So when that's created, then we would notify who we need to with a link that goes to that task. But if we go back into here and open up our task page, we should see, we called it 1, 2, 3. This is the task we created, and hopefully that if we open up the task, the end date, so we specified the end date, end of next week, I think 20th, so that's populated correctly. So that form, say, could populate some of the other content of the task, the description, who's going to be responsible for it. I guess you might want to create a task, but it'd be assigned to somebody else.
Yeah, if you wanted to, you use the date field there. If you wanted to use the date and time, you could actually specify the time in that field as well. So if the task has to be finished by a certain time of the day, it's just because we use the date, so we didn't specify the time, but that could be quite useful when you're doing that.
Yeah, I think so. If we go into these are the fields that we can choose from. These are the types of fields that we can choose from, and I think you have a date time field. We chose the date only field, so it defaults to that midday date if you don't specify a time. But other things you could do, other fields available. Bind to user. So if you wanted to request responsible person, or who's going to be participants of the task, you'd use this bind to user, and that would require someone to specify a user. Link files, add files to a task if you wanted to do that. Link to other CRM elements, so if you wanted to link that to a company or even another contact in the CRM, you can do that.
Yeah, just while we're in this process, I just want to follow on just another question that we received. Damien mentioned there you could send a notification out with regards to a link to this particular task, and we had a very similar question just with regards to being able to update a field within a contact with a work group that was created in the same process. So what you could do here is, for example, you can create a new work group, and Damien mentioned earlier, if you manually run a process in a deal, you can create a project work group. Now what they wanted to do then was to update a field in the deal with a link to that work group. Now how you can do this is, you basically, if you bring in modify element here, in fact we'll do it on a notification to make it a little bit more easier. So what we can do, notification text, And you just generally need, in additional results, you can see here that we have task ID and we have group ID. So you can actually get the ID of the task or group that you're looking for. So if you wanted to create a link to the task, then it's just a simple case of clicking on the ID here, and then if we just get, for example, on here, this particular link, we can then paste the link in here, grab the ID field here, and replace where the ID should sit. So that will then automatically provide a link to that particular task that's been created within the actual process. And you can see BB code's enabled, so you could make that look nice by saying you could square bracket URL equals here, and then close the square bracket, and then you could put click here, and then close the URL. So that's how, in terms of BB code, if you just Google BB reference list, BB code reference list, then you can get all these small tweaks on that you can do. But that would be then a pretty link. Click here to go to the task, and that's how it would be done, because you can, like I say, you can grab the ID of anything that's been created in the business process beforehand. So hopefully that will help anybody that's looking to do that.
Okay, so we had a question earlier in the week that I wanted to touch on regarding well, the question was, will my system run faster if I use your server or my own? So we actually the answer is that they should run at the same speed. The speed of your system is dependent on the environment that it runs on, and the server spec. So we have we can recommend this. We're talking about self-hosted edition here. So if you're hosting yourself, or self-hosted edition, we can recommend the minimum specification you should have on your hardware. If that would be dependent on how many users you've got. The more active people are on the system, you're going to have better spec. But in addition to that, you've got options around how the environment works. You can use the Bitrix virtual machine. We actually have our own environment which we've developed. If whether you're hosting it in-house or we're hosting it on our server for you, we can run either the Bitrix environment or our own environment on that server, and that configures Bitrix in an optimal way. Our own environment actually runs 30% faster than the Bitrix environment. So if you're looking at setting up self-hosted, I would recommend, of course, our own environment as opposed to the Bitrix environment. It's quicker. It's very easy to install as well. We don't charge for it. There's no charge. If you buy a license from us, we'll set it up for you. You can use our own environment, and I think it's quite important. The speed is obviously important to usability. So, but it doesn't matter whether you use your own server or use ours. That's irrelevant, really. It's the environment that you're running on it.
Okay, so we've got 10 minutes left. So if you've got any questions remaining, just please fire them in on YouTube, and we can answer them. We have a couple more left here that have come through. So we've just got, it's just somebody mentioned with reference to branding again, just what it's capable of. So in the cloud version, we can upload our own logo, and we can change the background theme, so you can upload your own custom theme. And part of the question was, can you remove the branding? So you couldn't do that on the cloud version because you don't have access to that sort of the source code of that. So we would usually recommend upload your logo, and maybe upload your own theme with a bit of your company's branding on the theme itself. Alternatively, on the self-hosted, you've pretty much got a free reign. You can create login pages, you can style up anything, you can make different coloured backgrounds, etc. So you can create whatever you want. You've got access to the source code on there. and you can remove the Bitrix branding on the front end if you wanted to as well.
Okay, we had a question: can a lead be made to follow through stages automatically, or does it have to be manual? Follow through stages. Not too sure what's meant by that exactly, but a lead does have stages that it follows through. You can name these stages to suit your particular process. So you can these stages can automatically update based on something else happening. So let's say I change this drop down from to a different choice and save it. We can have dependencies inside these fields that will then update that. It will look for that. It will update the lead to a new stage. So it can be set. So you've got really two choices, two ways of doing this. You can either have salespeople updating the stage as and when they progress the opportunity, and based on when these updates, that can trigger a process that delivers maybe just simply like a notification. So when we get to so they completed or something, then that might want to send a notification out to somebody. So the stage can trigger a process that does something, or you can have a process that actually changes the stage. You can do either way, or you can do both essentially. So inside the automation page here, you can see that these stages across the top are replicated down here on this automation page, and we have these rules here. So when a stage is changed, these rules are enabled. So in this case, when a new lead's added, this sends out an email, and waits for 3 days, and then changes the status to a different stage. This sends out a notification, schedules a call. So there's quite a lot of different things you can do. If you click into here, you can look through yourselves at all the different options you've got to do create automatic actions within the system. If you wanted a stage to be updated when somebody changed a field to a field that meets a value that you're looking for, then don't know if we can do it inside here. No, I don't think we can. So you can't create a condition inside the automation page here that would look at the value of a field. So we were talking about when I change this drop down list, we want a condition that looks at that new selection, new value I've selected, and if it meets the criteria, then it updates this. So you do it.
You think you can do that?
You can do it in automation, can you?
So if you go to, for example, if you wanted to change the status based on a condition, okay, we could add that in here. So we could say, which field were we looking at? Sorry, source maybe? Source. So say, for example, if source equals, I don't know, email, then we can change the status to valuing. And so
okay.
and you can add multiple sources if you wanted to.
Okay, cool. So that's so that is then just available in change status, right? Okay. So I was looking at the top for a trigger to change the status, but actually you can do it. So what would have to happen is it would, when the deal's at this stage, it can perform the actions that are below. One of those actions can be, as Andy says, change status. So and inside that you can have your condition. If the condition's met, it will perform that action. If it's not, it will wait until the condition is met. So, okay. So I don't think we've got any more questions.
No, I think if I'll just get our contact details up here. So as we've mentioned, we do this live session every Thursday at 10 AM Eastern Time, and if you subscribe to our channel, hopefully you get notified now when we come live. We're also going to be doing our webinars that are on a Monday, also on our interface live. So you can see the webinars, and they're every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern time. So you can see our contact details are up on the screen. If you've got any questions, just contact us again, whichever location that you are in, and we're more than happy to help. If you are looking into getting Bitrix and you want a demonstration, again, we can provide that. We can book an online demonstration so we can share our screen and show you, and we also can build any custom processes that you may need, or help with really anything to do with Bitrix. So we're here to help. So just get in touch with us. And so if you've got questions for next week, drop them to live@intraface.com, and we can pick them up next week on Thursday. But until then, bye for now.
Thanks.